Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while since I've done a favorite houseplant video. I think the last one we did was back in December of 2020 when we did the Plantula and chose our top 10 favorite houseplants of the year. I figured we definitely need some footage or behind the scene looks for this year. So that way, when we do Plantula season 2, we got something to look back at. And these 5 plants I'm going to share with you guys are plants I'm really feeling or vibing with right now. Partly because they're either teaching me something new about plant care, or they're reminding me why I enjoy being a plant dad and why I love having these plants around. And for those of you guys who's been following me for a while, some of these plants you'll recognize, so it's also a good way for you guys to get an update on how they're doing, while others are still fairly new to me. And if this is the first time we're meeting and you're new to my channel, my name is Christian. I'm crazy about plants, and if you're crazy about plants, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you like these types of content, definitely give it a thumbs up or comment below and let me know what you think. So without further ado, we'll get started with our first plant. It is the Manjula Pothos. So there's a few things I want to share with you guys about this particular variety. One is how to tell it apart from the rest of your variegated pothos like a marble queen or a pearling jade. But first I want to share with you guys how I got this to regrow roots, because I did get this from one of my suppliers overseas, and when they arrived, the roots did not look good. Now, historically, when it comes to pothos, they are one of the easiest houseplants you can cut, propagate, and grow roots in water. So that's pretty much what I did with this. I put it in water, put it in an area that gets a lot of bright indirect light, warm temperatures, and I expected the roots to start growing within the same week, but unfortunately, I wasn't seeing it at all. So I gave it about another week, and again, it wasn't showing any signs of roots, but the plant was still healthy and it was alive. So I then moved it to sphagnum moss because I was comfortable with sphagnum moss as a growing medium to help grow roots or develop new roots. But that also wasn't working. And then finally, one of you guys suggested to use perlite as a propagation medium or as a medium to help develop the roots, and I did that. I've never used 100% perlite as a propagation medium, so I was a little bit hesitant about it, but at the same time, it reminded me that I was also the same way when it came to sphagnum moss. I've never really used it, and once I got used to it, I became really comfortable, and it is pretty much kind of my preferred method now when it comes to growing and propagating plants. So I figured, you know what, let's experiment with perlite. So I threw a prop box together, put a layer of perlite on there, watered it, and then I threw the Manjula cuttings in there, closed the lid, put it in an area that gets a lot of bright indirect light, and within the same week, I started to see the roots, and then the following week, they just took off like crazy. So now I have a few of them potted in 100% perlite, and they're loving it. Again, I was quite surprised at how well they took to perlite, but it was also good for me to experiment because now I feel more comfortable experimenting with other plants to try and grow roots in perlite and use it as a propagation medium. So that was pretty cool experience for me, and another reminder to not be afraid to try new things. Now, the next thing I want to share with you guys about this variety is how do you tell it apart from the rest of your variegated pothos. So I got a few pothos here that I want to share with you guys. I have my marble queen that you guys see right here. The variegation on the marble queen is a little bit more evenly distributed throughout the leaves, and you guys can see it's a bit more of that green on green type of variegation, while the Manjula Pothos variegation that you guys can see here is a bit more swirled, like with the green, the yellow, the creamy white, almost has that pastel-like colors to it. So you guys can see a difference when it comes to the variegation. But in addition, it's also on the leaf that you guys can tell the difference here. The Marble Queen Pothos has more of a narrow, flat leaf, similar to the rest of like your other pothos, like a Golden Pothos or even a Pearling Jade. The leaves are a little bit more flat. While the Manjula, the way to also tell the difference is the leaves are wider and also a little bit more wavier that you guys see right here. At first, I couldn't really tell the difference, but until you have a Manjula in person and you're looking at it and you're comparing it to your Marble Queen, you can definitely see the difference. Now, when you compare the Manjula to the Pearls and Jade that you guys see right here, it may have a similar variegation style of that swirl of, you know, the green and the creamy color with a bit of that speckle, but you guys can see the difference in the variegation as well, where the Pearls and Jade has a bit more hard edges of where the green and cream break, and then on the lighter colors of the Pearl and Jade, you guys can see that splattered green variegation on it. In addition, the leaves on the Pearls and Jade are a lot smaller than even the Marble Queen or the Manjula. So that's how you can kind of tell the Manjula apart from the rest of your variegated pothos, is really the way the leaves are a little bit more wavier, they're a bit more wider and rounder, and the variegation is a little bit more swirl and more pastel-like, but it is a beautiful pothos. And if you guys ever come across one, I encourage you to definitely grab one. I do also find they are slightly a bit of a slower grower than the Marble Queen or even the Pearls and Jade, but nonetheless beautiful. So the next plant I want to share with you guys I've had for a while, it is the, ta-da, my Thai Constellation Monstera. Now for those of you guys who's followed me for a while, if you remember, I got 2 baby Thai Constellation Monstera around the summer of 2018 for like $40 each. And I took care of them, they grew nicely. Unfortunately, they got attacked by thrips the following year. So I tried to treat it with like neem oil and insecticide soap, but I went overboard with neem oil where it burnt the top leaves off because those were really variegated. And if you go overboard with neem oil, especially if you don't dilute them, they will burn your leaves, especially variegated ones. I damaged the top part of it. It did not grow the rest of the year. And finally last spring, it started to show some new signs of growth. It took off over summer, but then it got attacked by thrips again. I was so frustrated to a point where I just had to remove all the leaves as much as possible and kept only the top 2 leaves because thrips lay their eggs in the leaves, right? So at that point, I was like, you know what, let me just remove as much of the older leaves as possible and only keep the top cuttings. I then chopped this off to then propagate those top cuttings in water, and then eventually I potted them into moss and then soil. But I was taking a risk with this plant, and I knew when you cut a Monstera, eventually they're gonna show new growth and they're gonna take off. But I've been so impressed with the way this is taking off because now we have so much growth happening. One of the vines has 2 growth points that you guys can see here. The one that's a little bit more variegated. You got one closer to the base there, and then the other one a little bit more top. And that's how usually, you know, when you cut a Monstera, is they'll just shoot out a new growth off to the side of that vine. And then on this other main vine, we got this huge growth that's taking place right now. And this is a new, beautiful leaf that's taking off. I'm so loving this look right now. Yes, we don't have a split leaf yet, but I know this summer it's gonna give us one. And I love the layered look, the 2 tiers and 2 levels. And I was so happy. So, you know, for me, it reminded me that sometimes you kind of need to like go drastic cut to start over again, and it'll surprise you. And you know, as long as you have a good root system, a healthy root system, your plants will take off and they'll look pretty cool again. And I was just really impressed at how fast this grew. Not only do we have this mother plant now that's really taking off, but now we also have these top cuttings that we propagated and they're looking really good as well. We got a new leaf showing on one of them and the other one just recently unfurled. So we got more Thai Constellation Monstera. So again, it was another reminder that don't be afraid to cut your plants if you have to kind of take a step back and start over again, because as long as you have a healthy root system, they will thrive and they will flourish and they will continue to grow. All right, so the next plant I want to share with you guys is the, ta-da, the Cebu Pothos. So one thing I want to share with you guys about this pothos is, if you guys remember, I only got this last summer, I think around like midsummer or late summer, and I only got a single vine, and you guys can see right here, maybe there's about like 4 or 5 leaves, or maybe even 3 leaves, but look how much it's grown. Now, the way to do this is obviously I cut, propagate, plant it back to the top. I cut, propagate, plant it back to the top. And if you guys are struggling with planting cuttings back to the mother plant to kind of create this full look, I did a video on how to do that properly, so be sure to check it out. But that's pretty much what I was doing since I got this. As soon as it grew a bit long, I cut it, I rooted it in water, and then I planted it back at the top. And look how full it is now. I think we got about 9 or 10 vines in here, and we got a few more that's propagating in my prop box. So really, really cool. I mean, first things first is, this plant is such a prolific grower, so you can't go wrong by cutting it because it'll just continue to grow. And I also did get this as a trade from Natasha. So for me, it reminded me that you can get beautiful or uncommon plants like a Cebu Blue off a trade, even a single vine, and turn it into a full potted plant like this. And like I said, this is less than a year, and look how beautiful those leaves in the hues of blues and green and silver. It is definitely a beauty. So really, really happy at how well this has taken off. Like I said, if you can trade plants, go for it. It beats buying and spending money. Now, obviously, some plants will not grow as fast as a Cebu Blue, but nonetheless, it's a great way to really grow your collection. It's just off trading and just having the patience to obviously, you know, cut, propagate, and then plant back at the top. But yeah, really, really happy about this one. Next plant I want to share with you guys, something new for me, but it's so cool. It is the, ta-da, a Sygonium Mojito. So this is probably my 3rd or 4th Sygonium variety in my collection. I have the Pink Splash, the Wenlandii, and the Albo. And I love Sygoniums because A, I think they're easy to care for, and I love the shape of the leaf. And this particular Sygonium is reminding me that beautiful variegated plants doesn't have to be white and green. It can be this green on green look, and I actually do prefer it over the Sygonium albo, to be quite honest. I just love that like mojito molted kind of look to it. So really, really cool. And yeah, definitely one of my favorite Sygoniums right now. I think it is my favorite Sygonium, definitely over the albo and the pink splash. I like the Wendlandii, but I really do like this mojito, and I've been wanting one for a while. So really cool to finally have one in my collection. And yeah, so if you do come across one of these, definitely add it to your collection, because I think variegated plants doesn't have to be white and green. Green on green is equally as beautiful. Now, the last plant I want to share with you guys is an Anthurium, and you guys know I love Anthuriums. It is the, ta-da, the Anthurium Vittarifolium. So first of all, I love how uniquely different this is from the rest of the heart-shaped leaf Anthuriums that you typically would come across. These nice elongated thick leaves. This one's a new leaf, and you guys can see it's still quite soft. It hasn't hardened yet, but it has that nice shine on it. And the reason why I'm really feeling this particular Anthurium, it's because it's reminding me that not every single uncommon or rarish plant out there is going to be difficult to care for. And this is honestly one of the easiest Anthuriums you can ever care for. I have this just outside my greenhouse, so it's not even getting high humidity. My relative humidity in my bedroom is about like 20 to 30%. And I do have it potted in sphagnum moss, so I do often gotta water it, but I am planning to move it in a much more chunky aeroid mix where it's gonna retain a bit more of the moisture, so that way I'm not often watering this. But really, really easy to care for, and it looks so cool hanging on a bookshelf or even hanging off the ceiling. And yeah, definitely one of my favorite Anthuriums, partly because it's just so different, and like I said, really easy to care for. But yeah, so those are the 5 plants that I'm really feeling and vibing with right now. Like I said, some of them are teaching me something new, like the Manjula with the perlite, or they're reminding me why I really enjoy caring for plants and going through the experience, like that Cebu Pothos, getting that off a trade, starting off as a single vine with a few leaves and now seeing how full and lush it is. Or my Thai Constellation Monstera, I was so afraid to cut that thing back, but knowing that I had a healthy root system and the foliage just needed to go and almost start over, I was glad I ended up cutting it, because now we got a beautiful mother plant that's thriving and growing really healthy. Plus we got 2 top cuttings that's growing nicely as well. But yeah, so these are my 5 favorite plants that I'm feeling right now. Comment below and let me know if you like any of them, or if any of your plants are teaching you something new, or maybe they're reminding you why you enjoy being a plant parent. Other than that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.